All right, well, good morning, everybody. I am coming to you from Burlington, Vermont. It's Father's Day. This particular weekend, we are gathering with our grandkids. It's a super big day down at the baseball park because the Lake Monsters team, the local team, is coming out and doing a training with all the kids in Little League. So that should be quite a morning. And I'm with you, which is fantastic. I wanted to start today by kind of looping back to last week. We had our annual meeting last week, so it was a shortened presentation. But what the presentation was about was introducing you to this idea that I think we all need to maybe reflect on how we might accommodate this idea, particularly as it's one of the themes inside of the Gospel of Thomas that we might want to pay attention to. And that is that the very character of the religious experience that we're seeking or that we're trying to enter more fully into is birthed out of or derives out from our actual historical context or our cultural history, right? The place in which we reside. And you can see this, I mean, we could go into this, but you can see this as the way in which languages develop or societies develop, how they are birthed out of the very historical context in which they find themselves. And so there always has to be a strong tether between the emerging religious perspective and the actual situation that people are in. You know, it's not just some abstract that appears out of nowhere, but it births itself out from this historic collective body. So we did that last time. We talked about how, if you will, think about it in this way: world body or your body. You know, the context of your living experience is the construct or the birthing place or the womb out of which and into which you plumb your exploration for the spiritual life, so that a religious perspective derives out from that context and is shaped by that context. And so we understand that this interacts with our kind of religious sensitivities, and that there's this interplay between them both, and they ultimately inform each other, right? They're wed together in a deep relationship. And what I wanted to think about today, as you think about whether you want to adopt this idea or not, is that there's more than one body, right? If you think about maybe the way in which cosmic body or earth body or national body or local body, family as body, and your body, they're all part of this constant cycle of relationship. And the point of the texts in the Gospel of Thomas is to seek out within the God within you, within the body, you seek the kind of wisdom to create meaning in your life. And that's where the secrets are held. The secrets are held inside of these multiple bodies. And my guess is you're interacting with multiple bodies all the time. So I think that's where I wanted to start today and kind of launch from there, is that let's at least entertain the notion that religion is not the accumulation of a set of divinely constructed or even absolutes that emerge out of the ether, right? They're not, revelation doesn't happen that way. Rather, they're birthed out of our conversation with the very context in which we find ourselves. And that conversation, as Stephen Patterson put, and I read that quote last week, I might read it again this week, the social construct in relationship with the reflections we bring on that social construct, right? That forms this kind of plane, right? Or maybe think about it as the playing ground or the landscape on which and out from which we interpret reality, through which we then attempt to live. So this is in a sense, this is the area in which we strive to make meaning out of our lives. And meaning that is grounded in our body and the collective body. So I think that's the proposal that we're exploring, and that's the insight that the Gospel of Thomas brings to us in some sense. So, what is that body of work that we're required to do, right? What is that body of work that births wisdom, spirituality, insight, meaning, out from which we can then construct life, right? As we make that meaning, we then return that meaning back into our social fabric, right? We create body even as we birth out from body a sense of meaning. It's this constant cycle, a very dynamic cycle. And, the one thing that it reminds me of, if we're dealing with a lot of bodies, then every body matters, right? Every body brings something to this conversation. Cosmic body, earth body, the body of the natural world in which we're engaging every day, the collective body, the struggles we face, our own personal histories. It's this beautiful matrix, how we tend to that matrix and how we pay attention to the magic or the wonder or the mystery or the possibility inside of that helps us live these meaningful lives that we do. All right? One of the things that we know about the Gospel of Thomas is that the Gospel of Thomas is not attempting to portray the message of Jesus as a religion based on the actual person of Jesus, right? So we know that that's a twist that we've run into in the Gospel of Thomas. It's not really about Jesus at all. And even though in the later Gospels there is a narrative, a storyline about Jesus that kind of creates an arc of the church year and kind of bursts what we understand religion today, some of this original material that we're discovering it really isn't about Jesus at all. It's about the journey. It's about the process. It's about the way in which we tend to seeking meaning in our lives. You can hear it in the Gospel of Thomas, the second reading in the Gospel of Thomas. Let me see if I can find that one. I think that's a good one. It's, if you think about that, this is it's the second saying in the Gospel of Thomas. So it's really like a preface, like what's this all about anyway? And you'll notice it sounds a lot different than some of the other Gospels that, in a sense, justify who Jesus is, his divinity, his authority. Think about John's Gospel. In the beginning, was the Word, and then the Word was made flesh. I mean, it just manifests all of this divine authority into the person of Jesus. That's not what you get in the Gospel of Thomas. It's about the search. It's about seeking. It's about openness. Definitely get that in the spirit of the way in which Gospel of Thomas pieces together the wisdom of Jesus. So, number 2, it goes like this. Jesus said, "Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. And when they find, they will be disturbed. And when they are disturbed, they will marvel and will begin to reign over all." You hear, I hope you're hearing now how these two things come together in this particular text, right? They seek, out from the inner wisdom that we all have, or the inner light that we all have, because that's the way the Gospel of Thomas understands the way God's working in every body, right? So they seek, they find, they're disturbed. They're possibly disturbed by the way in which this is manifesting. And then this kind of new kingdom, this new reign begins to birth itself it is the obligation of everyone to go on this seeker's journey, according to the Gospel of Thomas. For the followers of this Thomistic way that Jesus was probably a part of, their sense of how best to do this work was a disconnect from the culture, was to separate themselves from all of the cultural norms of their day, which they felt was bringing on this massive amount of dis-ease. And you can see that in the healing ministry of Jesus. He's constantly casting out demons out from people's bodies, right? That we've embodied the dis-ease of the culture. And for Jesus in his time, and probably this early movement, they realized that the best way to reimagine and recast a more sacred life was to disconnect from that. So it was a pure disconnection from so much of what was broken in society. And they became these kind of wanderers, these wisdom wanderers that were definitely apart from society. You might think of it in this way, that they, in a sense, they wandered away from society back into wilderness again. Just like the old story of the Israelites who in Egypt realized that there was so much dis-ease in that social construct that they had to leave, right? Exit that Egyptian lifestyle that was so oppressive to them. They had to enter into no space or wilderness space, and there they found again the Spirit of God in their lives so that they could reconstruct a social fabric again. That kind of capacity for revelation through an engagement at some level with the very fabric of the collective body is what this is all about. And that's what I'm pondering with you. Is that what it might be about for us too, right? Or could we at least integrate some of that into the way in which we think about our religious journey for today? So a couple of things that we get from the Gospel of Thomas that might help us to do that. So the first one is to remember that, and you might want to just consider this, that your religious path is birthed not inside the perpetuation of the organized religion that we've been so comfortable with for so long, right? That's not where it's birthed. Its actual birthing place is out from your body and the collective body. And so it gives you permission to tend to what's really going on today. Like really pay attention, look inside of it. We don't have to go back into wilderness, I don't think, anymore. I think that's too extreme. But we can definitely say that the entry place to the religious journey should be the very body in which we live. So let's tend to that body, and that looks like all sorts of things in the culture. You could probably name 20 different major kind of collective body issues that you'd want to look into to see, is there some spark within there that might help us reimagine what that should look like? Education, healthcare, wealth and income distribution, environmental practices, how we acknowledge each other as based on race or sexual orientation and gender identity. I mean, you could just go on and on with all of those things. And all of them should be approached from that point of view. The wonder of that is you're not applying some sort of abstract notion of what's right or wrong to those anymore. You're actually paying attention to them in a different way. So how might that work for you? Well, the first thing we find in the Gospel of Thomas, which is a little quirky, I think, is that partly taking that journey or approaching your religious journey that way, you don't have to worry about getting it right. You look at the Gospel of Thomas, there's no destination in it, ever. There's no outcome, no result, really. It's just, you gotta go seek and you will find. Seeking creates finding. You need to be the seeker, the finding will come. You don't have to think about, did I get this absolutely right? You just have to be open to the seeking and discerning about how you're in relationship to this conversation you're having or the experience you're having of the collective body. So that's number one. If you think you've got to get it right, that could be a distraction. It's more about a very confident sense of openness to the journey. Partly I like that. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get it exactly right, but I can dive into and expect that something like sacred will come out of my engagement with the world. That's what it's really asking you to explore. Because there really isn't any absolute answer waiting for us all. There's no one thing that's going to make this all right. It's all of us taking this journey together. It's in this kind of deep seeking that we deeply find something that helps guide us into meaning. It reminds me, years ago I was on the executive board of directors for the Center for Progressive Christianity. And one of the curriculums that they generated in relationship to a number of scholars was a curriculum called Living the Questions. And it was a curriculum that was designed to help people think about, how do I think about my spirituality as just asking certain kinds of questions that serve as a sort of a guiding principle for me. And it wasn't about any answers. It was just about how you live questions. I kind of love that, and that maybe fits into this model a little bit. The other one was we worked on a children's curriculum for, I don't know, about 4 years, developed a few different series, and we struggled with what to call that children's curriculum, and we settled on the title, A Joyful Path. So it was really all about the journey and also not about some sort of imposing onto children the end result, but inviting them into a process like that. Now, you might think about that. What's your joyful path? How do you live the questions? The next one is that, and this was a struggle for, I think, as the Thomas community began to formalize its perspective. It was doing so in a world where the story of Jesus that was birthed in the Gospels was gaining more traction. And so the Gospel of Thomas, who was always trying to keep everything open and, exploratory and to disconnect from this body so you could explore a different one, it became less attractive as this kind of larger story of Jesus began to take hold in the collective consciousness. And then that larger story started to be layered in and on top of authoritative voices. And then that story got picked up by Constantine and the organized church and dogma and creeds and worship practices and buildings and infrastructure and fundraising all came to be packaged around the religion that we know today. So much of this sort of spontaneous kind of religious perspective disappeared. And that really becomes a question for us, is that I understand why it disappeared. It's kind of not, it doesn't create like groupthink. It doesn't create an outcome. It just always invites people to go, you should look a little deeper into the life that you're living and see what you might find, right? And then church becomes like a collaboration of diverse voices in that journey. What does that look like? I mean, I don't even know what that looks like. But that's sort of obviously what happened to this Gospel of Thomas. It just couldn't keep traction trying to function like this in light of this emerging religious story that was quickly coming on board through the various Gospels and then the kind of structure of the church that ultimately exploded under Constantine. So what could you do with this Gospel of Thomas? Well, just a couple things. One, excuse me, I would say this is me talking now, let your heart be an open place for the world. Right? So often we look at the world and think, oh man, everything's just broken or falling apart, or we get upset with things. Could you look at world kind of as, the birthing place for your spirituality? Could you have an open heart for it? And an open heart for each other and neighbor and neighbors who are a lot different than you are, right? Is there kind of a tender, vulnerable way to trust that there is something wonder-filled inside of that world that you want to seek or explore? And just to see if taking that kind of a process into this dynamic relationship changes or creates something within you. So that'd be the first one. And you kind of let that draw you into your experience of life itself. And let me give you that. I think that's something that you could explore. I definitely have been exploring that, and I've borne witness to it over and over again. Let me give you a quick example, and then I'll leave you for today, and we'll pick this up again next week. Quick example is over the last few weeks, I was invited to read this manuscript that a friend of mine wrote about the discipline of listening to each other. How do you listen to each other? And I did it in a book club with my brothers and my dad, and we discussed this book. It was a manuscript on kind of how to listen. And at first, when we were doing the book, it just felt like, it was like the skills you need to listen. There was a lot of that. And it was some brilliant stuff. I mean, we really did learn a lot about how do we kind of allow ourselves to tune in with a listening ear to the other person. But before long, we realized that it really was more than just how do we listen, but rather how are we sensing or picking up on that which is deeply sacred in the life of another, right? We're opening up kind of a heart-to-heart moment that allows, if you will, this sort of different kind of, almost like something different to emerge out from the interaction than just paying attention to words. You're really sensing the person's spirit at some deep level, almost like there's something mystical in the relationship that all of a sudden opens it up so that it's an experience other than just kind of me and you. Martin Buber would say it's the I and thou experience, right? What we talked about with the Namaste, that the sacred within me is interacting with the sacred that's within you, and listening is this gateway into that experience. And all three of us on the call, I think, kind of begin to see that our daily interactions with world, body, your body, everybody, has the potential of being that all the time. And could that be religion for today? Right? That's it. You don't have to build on it. You just have to be doing that. That's a great question. So I'm going to leave you with that question for today. Thank you for taking time, 25 minutes of your time to kind of listen to me today. But I just wanted to push a little bit harder on that notion that Patterson brings up about how Gospel of Thomas is all about tending to the sacred in every body. So what might that mean for your religious journey? All right, blessings on your day.